So thank you so much, Lucas and the TEDx team, for having me. I put a lot of these speakers events on. I know it's a slog. Well done. Very enterprising of you as well, taking advantage of all the amazing kit that you have around on campus. Thanks for the very warm introduction as well. So before I start, it'd be really interesting for me to know just how many of you in the audience are currently studying or graduated in the last 4 years. So put your hand up. Don't worry, I'm not going to drag you out. Okay, cool. So I'd say about 75% of you here. No, keep your hands up, hands up, hands up. Right, keep your hands up if you have a clearly identified passion that you are aware of. Okay, you can be honest, I'm not judging. Right, cool. Now, of you that still have your hand up, what have any of you done, and keep your hand up, if you have done something tangible in pursuit of that passion? You've started a website, or you've had an event, or you've tried to seed some capital funding for it. Okay, so we've probably gone down to about 25% of that bunch who had their hand up to start with. About a quarter of you of students in the room are doing that. You can put your hands down now, but thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to paint a little picture for you, tell you a bit about my story, and then paint a picture about where we are, and then maybe offer a little solution through what I'm founded at the moment. So that's me. When I had hair, lovely, pub golf, student days. Lamenting out in the quad earlier, lovely. So I got a 2-2 in history with a focus on modern political ideas. Sounds very fancy. I mean, it just meant I got to waffle a lot. An MSc in International Relations, likewise, I got a pass in that. So perhaps a slightly higher than average student. Student life, deadline is when? As I'm sure some of you are currently experiencing going into summer term. When's the next rehearsal? Did a lot of drama, that kind of thing. Spread my interests widely. When's the next shift? I probably put on about 30 hours a week whilst I was studying to fund studies in excess. There's a careers centre. I think I got dragged there once by my dad, bless him, who sort of thought, wow, you know, you're saying you want to get a job in international relations or public policy, and do you know anything about this? And, well, you know, had a look at the UN website. Wow, we're going to the careers centre, and I went there. Wow, I mean, that's a dusty place. So, OGOD initiation, so from the careers centre with then, you know, rugby society, hockey society, mixed it up a lot, was involved in a lot of different things. Entrepreneur, interesting, I mean, we're talking, had the introduction, I'm involved in entrepreneurship, enterprise. I had no idea what an entrepreneur was when I was at uni. I mean, the whole concept was just, not even, I mean, I just didn't know about it. So when I graduated from my history degree, I got a grad job in sales for a media company, lovely people to work for. God, it was an awful job, just cold calling on the phone, just never ending, selling something that was not mine, not my product. And that never ending question, it's just the most awful question, that what are you going to do with your life? People want a definite answer with that, I'm going to be the president, I'm going to, you know, run X. I mean, I want to do loads of things, and I don't want to be boxed into that. So, and I've never really been comfortable with answering that question. So, I mean, in answering that question, we have, what are your graduate opportunities? So we have generic commercial sales, recruitment, estate agency. I think it's insane nowadays that for these jobs that effectively just require good personal interfacing skills, good customer service skills, that you need a degree for that. I mean, not to play them down, not for people in those fields. My girlfriend in the audience, she works in recruitment, and she's lovely. Isn't she lovely? And a very bright and wonderful girl. But I don't think you need a degree for it. You need good personal relation skills. But in identifying that and in boxing that in, you preclude a huge amount of the workforce who might be good at that. And the reason that exists now is just because it's an employer's market. They can pick and choose, you know. And we'll go into a little bit about why that is later. Oh, sorry. And so then you could go on to a grad program, so maybe a little bit more technical, banking. I mean, the typical requirement is that you have a biomedical engineer from Imperial to get into a banking grad. I mean, that's just insane, isn't it? Management or retail. And the reason that I point those out, I mean, as those opportunities in that sector are increasingly narrow, yeah, I mean, I don't really have much more to say about that. Not really my cup of tea. Interning. That's obviously, given the fact that I wanted to get involved in an international non-profit, something social good-esque, didn't really at the time know what that was going to be. But I knew that in order to do that, I was going to have to go through this channel. And that relates to government, creatives, non-profit organizations. And I mean, I'll expand on that in a little bit. Lucky hookups, a few of my friends, just have those. I can't really account for that in this narrative. But out of all of that, and this is a crazy statistic, and this statistic was released, it was published on the Guardian website a week after I graduated in 2008. So that's 3.5 years ago. By 2020, only 42% of jobs will be graduate level. That's 58% of you aiming towards stuff whereby your talent is not going to be exploited. Now, I mean, that, in terms of public risk, and we're talking about the way that governments respond to investment, entrepreneurship, all the rest of it, I think that's a massive issue, that there's going to be that much sort of, stagnant debt in terms of the 21% of graduates from 2008 that are still not in full-time employment. What are we heading towards? Where is this going? So, whilst I was doing my master's, I wrote my master's dissertation on infrastructure development in Sudan. Sounds very fancy. I had a very good friend of mine at school who sold me the story. It's magnificent. And in terms of what these guys do, they educate governments on how to encourage their citizens to give up small arms like weapons. I was due to be going off and working on a placement with them, sort that out whilst I was at uni, all self-funded, and that happened. You see, oh dear, exactly when that arrow is, that's exactly the same week that I graduated from my master's. I'm thinking, oh my God, he's doing it too. Everyone's queuing up for jobs. And can ordinary people really change a government? Governments have been so sluggish at responding to the graduate unemployment crisis, but it's not a graduate unemployment crisis, it's a graduate opportunity crisis. That's the way that I bill it. So what did I do next? I interned. I'm standing here saying, well, I'm about to explain an alternative to that, but I interned for Unpaid, amazing people, amazing initiatives. I interned for the Liberal Democrats, worked for an incredible MP, Simon Hughes, a real champion. I think he's incredible. I'm not here to bash internships as such, but whilst I was there, I was working as a quiz master. It was all self-funded. So whilst I was, living off bugger all, £50 a week, somehow you're meant to live in London on £50 a week is just... And bear in mind, if you're interning, you're not counted by the state as a job seeker, so you don't stand to benefit from any kind of support in that sense. So I ran pub quizzes 5 nights a week to get through that. And all through this time, I'm thinking, God, there's just something so rotten at the core of this. That's not Unpaid's fault. That's not the Liberal Democrats' fault. That's what we subscribe to. That's what we allow ourselves to be led along into this situation whereby, in order to get into any of these arenas, public sector service, you have to go through this system. Now, internships, to my mind, are an unproductive box-ticking exercise, by and large, not for small organizations, and in fact, I would champion graduates to go and work for small organizations at a local level and contribute where your skills will be better recognized. And there's a great article, 8 reasons why graduates should join startups over a corporate job. And I could equally cancel out corporate job and plant in internships there. Because if you want to go and do an internship, I'd say 95% of you, if you want to get involved in public sector, government kind of level, you probably have to go to London. And I can tell you what, it's a nightmare. I lived in Canning Town there on tiny wage, and it was just grim. But hey, that's my story. I'm not saying that's for everyone, but it is by and large, and it's through research that we did with Interns Anonymous, and definitely check them out as if you're considering an internship. This is anonymous postings of interns and what their experience interning was. So, an unproductive box-ticking exercise that is a reserve of the rich elite, and you might say, well, this guy's got a posh accent, like he clearly went to a private school. I did. But I was self-funded, and I went through that on my own. When I left school, like I said, when I went to uni, I worked a lot of hours to get through, took a lot of loan, and I came out of university with £28,000 worth of personal debt, that including my master's loan. So without all bearing in mind, internships, unproductive box-ticking exercises, and that's not likely to change anytime soon. 18,000 hours a week, free hours a week, are connected to Parliament. And that constitutes maybe roughly £5.5 million saving of governments year on year. Even Nick Clegg, who was the supposed champion of interns, is at it too. He's posting jobs, online jobs. Jobs, i.e., you have to turn up at a certain hour, you finish at a certain time, you have a set job description, data entry, writing a photocopy, whatever. I've been there, I've done it. So we can't rely on them to change that system because they benefit so much from it. That 5.5 million quid's not a lot. If you think about, the dome, like all the rubbish stuff that the government spends its money on. So I thought, right, I'm going to go it alone. And that's a really camp picture of me quizzing in Edinburgh. And I moved up to Edinburgh for 6 months, and I set up a pub quiz network. And, it's doable and desirable, and it's lonely and confusing because you're like, God, I had none of these soft skills that I've come to learn. But I went up there and I did it anyway. I actually went up to Edinburgh for an interview with the Lib Dems, and I didn't get it. It was given to someone else who was already working in the organisation up there. But it's fine, I wasn't bitter about that. More pubs per square mile in Edinburgh than anywhere else in the world. It's a good quiz question, that. So I did that for 6 months, and then I was actually coming back down to London because I'd actually managed to get enough money together doing what I was doing to go on holiday, and I was thinking, right, what's the job scene saying? A job came up with the Piece One Day, and I've been following them. I love their work. Jeremy Gillian, a phenomenal guy. Check out his TED video. It's 500,000. He's an entrepreneur. He started in his bedroom making films, and now look, he's trying to change the world. International Day of Peace, legend. And I met these guys through setting up the Patrons program in Pod Talks events, and what they were was a recruitment mechanism to get SMEs, business owners, into paying £5,000 annually to support the running costs of the organisation of Peace One Day. And I got into that, interestingly enough, by talking about the quizzing that I was doing at my interview. It wasn't the internships, interestingly enough, it was the quizzing. They wanted to know about that. It was that spark. It was having shown that I could get off my arse and do something myself and not just be led. So it was meeting these guys and in listening to what they had to say. Fogels run the Sahara Desert. That is amazing. And Richard Reed set up Innocent Drinks after 1 million knockdowns. And she's just the sexiest. Oh, it's just amazing. I've just noticed that maybe slightly inappropriate picture. Sorry. But it wasn't their success stories that inspired me. It was them saying, this was really hard. I was holed up in my bedroom and I was crying. That was Davina, not Simon. Or maybe it was Simon, not Davina. I can't remember. They're both drama queens. But they've all achieved fantastic things. But it was their stories of graft. It was their stories of knockdowns. It was their failures. Simon Woodruff says, I wake up in the morning and I want to fail 100 times because it's only in that failure that we evolve. We've come to, unfortunately, be lumbered with an education system that is black and white. It's fail, win. It is pass, it is fail, it is, it doesn't celebrate the evolution of failure. And there's, we are all testimony that this whole building, education, society requires failure to evolve. So in doing that, I thought, right, I want to raise the level of conversation around this. I'm bored. I am so bored, as I'm sure all of you are, of this accepted doom-mongering around the subject of you're going nowhere. Graduate unemployment crisis is at an all-time high. National unemployment crisis, da-da-da-da-da. Like, stop whinging about it and start doing something about it. I'm thinking, well, maybe I should do something about it. So through all of this event curation that we did through Peace One Day, I started setting up Graduate Unleashed, which, as Mick pointed out earlier, still struggling to find funding for, but I'm committed to it, and I believe in it, and people that I tell about it, like, yeah, it's good, and I'm pushing through with it, and I hope to launch that in 2013. And what that is a 6-part enterprise program for students to teach you the soft skills on what is required to set up a business, and it's split into 2 sections, each seminar of the 6, which will lay on a person, an individual, a graduate entrepreneur success story to tell you why you should do this. But then that will be followed with a how. How do you get this done? And I think that's really, really important. And I think education establishments necessarily need to start embracing a strong program of events that, whether they be mine or otherwise, on the soft skills of how you set this stuff up. Because once your brain is attuned to that blueprint of how stuff is done, and it's not rocket science, as any one of these guys will tell you, it's just persistence. And it's in not allowing yourself to be told that you don't have an option. You do have an option. And it doesn't mean you have to shoulder that burden either. So I believe in three things. I believe that entrepreneurship can be taught to anyone. It doesn't mean it's for everyone, but it can be for anyone, and that's from Doug Richards. And the second bit is that internships are largely unproductive box-ticking exercise, as I've explained. But thirdly, and most importantly, I don't really have time to explain these two at the bottom here, but ignore that, I'll go back to that, is the harder a student or graduate tries to start their own business, the more likely they are to be headhunted or offered a job. And that is a trend. And that's an emerging trend that's being documented at the moment by Richard Sant, Enterprise Director of the University of Portsmouth. And the reason I believe in that is because that's what happened, to my mind, to me, when I went and joined Peace one day. I'd been quizzing for 6 months. I'd been doing my own thing. And whilst I wasn't headhunted, that was the most impressive thing on my CV as far as they were concerned. So going back in terms of what you can achieve on campus, because bear in mind, Graduate Unleashed is student-focused. These seminars are going to be held in the proximity of universities, because I believe that you have a huge amount of potential asset, I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. The assets that you have available on campus are unreal. You will not have access to those in the real world in the same way that you do right here, right now. All of this equipment, this comes from the media department. You've got marketing guys over there, your mates. Treat this as something that you can do with friends. This isn't meant to be laborious. If you choose a job that you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life. I've nicked that phrase, but I like it. And that is so true. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, yes! You know, going back to that boozy bloke in there, you know, yeah, I did struggle to get up in the morning, and I did watch a lot of Jeremy Kyle, and I did eat a lot of toast. But that, you know, I'm an average student, but I came to realize that. Anyway, so the guy that set this up, and this is not a promo for you, this is just to say that this guy who set this up, Jack Tang, he's 20, and he's an undergraduate in his second year at King's College University. He launched this website where you can put in your postcode and find out where your local hospitality job, casual work is, work on a day, maybe a week basis. It's very clever. He's 20, second year. He's just had an evaluation of this company at £1 million. He's sourced his human resources from King's campus. Like, he's taking advantage of stuff that he has here right now because he doesn't want to rely on a government or graduate opportunities or whatever different things are out there. He's going to rely on himself because he wants to have fun with his life. And that's what I believe in too. So, you know, I would call myself average. I'm sure, you know, a lot of people, he was once described as average. Maybe even slightly below par. But he ended up running a country, and he's setting up a space agency. I mean, come on. So what I'm setting myself out to do is raise the level of conversation in and around graduate prospects. They both did it, and if you do that with what your passion is, you will surprise yourself. Thank you.